Kyle Dubas's master plan for the Pittsburgh Penguins has been revealed as we get major reports coming from an NHL insider linking the Pittsburgh Penguins to a massive free agent signings that could change the entire future of this franchise. We're going to break down this report, the future of the Penguins, and a lot more that you're not going to want to miss out on. But before we get into that, Darius, you have some exciting news to bring to the channel.
Yeah, we have a very exciting announcement for the channel. It is that time of year, Mark. It is March, so we are officially kicking off a March Madness bracket for the channel. We've partnered with Hot Takes app and other digest channels for this event. And the best part is it's completely free to sign up. You just download the Hot Takes app, click the March Madness banner at the top, and under group select the Digest Media Pool. This is really exciting because there's over $25,000 in prizes to be won. And since there's a much smaller pool of people participating, there's a real chance to win big money. Now, check out the link below in the description or the pinned comment and scan the QR code to download the app, and make sure to use promo code DIGEST. It is cap sensitive, so make sure to use the code DIGEST in all caps to get some nice rewards when signing up. And if you have any trouble signing up, there is an email in the description that you can contact us, and we'll be sure to help you get signed up in the app. But big shout out to Hot Takes for partnering with us on this. We're excited to see everybody in the Digest Media Pool for some March Madness.
But let's get right into this episode. And from this, we've seen Colby Armstrong win onto TNT, I was believe, yesterday talking about Mitch Marner and the Pittsburgh Penguins. You can pause and you can read the full quote because I'm not going to read through it fully. But obviously, there is a mandate for him to restock the Gensel trade, the young players, the prospects that can come in. This was him talking on Kyle Dubas. He said, can they secure him? Talking about Marner. They signed him in the offseason, and you can do with the cap money. I'm just saying there's a relationship there with Kyle Dubas, ex-GM of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, Darius, just looking from this initial quote from Colby Armstrong, what's your thoughts on Kyle Dubas maybe going out to acquire Mitch Marner? Listen, we know they got the draft picks. Not that you need to trade for him, but this is a team that just stocked up on draft picks. They still have a core, and they're looking to bounce back to a playoff spot next year. But what is the possibilities, and what's your thoughts on Mitch maybe walking from the Toronto Maple Leafs to join the Penguins in the offseason?
Well, it could make some sense because Kyle Dubas is the guy who backed up the Brinks truck for Mitch Marner originally anyway in Toronto. So it could make some sense that he would go out and try and re-sign or sign, I guess, with the Pittsburgh Penguins, this winger, because he's a great player in the league. He's an elite player in the league, and he's having a career year, at least offensively, this season. So it could make some sense. I don't know if he actually fits the Pittsburgh Penguins and kind of their window right now. I don't even know what their window is at this point. They have a lot of young prospects that aren't really superstars. And then they obviously have Malkin, Crosby, Letang still, who are at the end of their careers, but obviously, still putting up some decent numbers, but not good enough to lead this team to the playoffs anymore. So could make some sense for Kyle Dubas to do this. And listen, they have a ton of draft picks, like you brought up as well. A ton. Like, I cannot understate that enough. Draft picks over the next couple of years. So, they can use these and they can kind of weaponize them. They don't have to use these all in the draft. They can trade some of these to acquire some really good players to then rebuild the team very quickly next year if they were to sign Mitch Marner. Now, what do we know about Mitch Marner before I throw it over to you again, Mark, for your thoughts on this? That, he could be leaving Toronto this year. It sounds like he doesn't want to negotiate. He said it before the season. I don't want to negotiate in season. I want to wait till after the playoffs, which I think honestly makes sense for the Toronto Maple Leafs as well. This is a player who's really never shown up for them in the playoffs besides the first two games of any given series. And if you're the Toronto Maple Leafs, if you get the same result in this year's postseason, there could be incentive to let this player walk, try and re-sign some other players with the money that you have from him walking in the offseason and build up the team a little bit differently. So things are going to get a little crazy this offseason. One thing we know for sure, and again, I want your take on this, Mark, I think that he's going to hit the open market. He could still re-sign with the Maple Leafs, but I don't think an extension is going to come before July 1st. He could end up extending still, or re-signing, I should say, with the Maple Leafs, but I'm not too sure that he doesn't test the free agent market. Darren Ferris is notorious for walking his clients to the open market.
And yeah, that's the biggest thing. Looking at Marner's contract, he is getting paid just shy of under 11 million, but he is a UFA at the end of this year. And like you said, they won't sign a contract, and you can read that about halfway through Marner's camp that is refusing negotiations throughout the season. But the biggest thing with this is we've seen from Elliot Freeman and Chris Johnson that it seemed like the Carolina Hurricanes wanted Marner for Mikko Rantanen. We know the Leafs were in on him, and this is relevant. Marner declined to waive his no trade clause because it seems like he wants to stay with the Leafs for the current moment. Marner, like you said, someone that's one of the best assists players in the entire National Hockey League. He can still score you 20 goals. The playoffs have been disappointing, but this is a piece that is quite interesting for the Pittsburgh Penguins. I mean, looking at the Penguins, they do have a couple of guys that are RFAs or UFAs, a couple of Leafs players that just went over there at deadline as well. But this is a team that has a bit of an older core. We know Sidney Crosby just played with Marner in the Four Nations, so maybe Kyle Dubas wants to just continue the youth movement to get a couple of young players. And like I said, Marner's only 27, so he does have room to grow. But looking at this, listen, they do have a lot of guys signed to contracts. Crosby's on the team for a while. Malkin, both of these guys are going to retire on the Pittsburgh Penguins. But could you see Kyle Dubas maybe making more room going in? You have older names as you work your name down this list. Or do you think he would go out and use the cap space and just sign Mitch and almost keep the same roster going into next year?
I do think that he's going to try and weaponize his cap space. I think with the way that the team is built and what he walked into, because a lot of people are going to blame Kyle Dubas, and I don't think, I think he made a lot of mistakes when he was the GM of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and he's making some mistakes as the GM of the Pittsburgh Penguins as well. But, what he walked into was a complete mess and a complete disaster. He's doing what he can with what he has here in terms of the contract situation, which is Letang got extended, Malkin got extended, Sidney Crosby got extended, right? You probably should have moved off from two of those guys, and none of them are Sidney Crosby. So, you probably should have moved on from a couple of them. Obviously, when Hextall was around, they extended those players. When you're looking at the future now, I think his plan is to, again, weaponize those draft picks, not use them in the draft, trade them away, not all of them, but some of them, for players that can come in that are younger, that can be useful, that he can rebuild the team with, and use the cap space that they have in free agency to bring in guys like Mitch Marner and some other free agents on the market to retool this team on the fly and try to make the playoffs again next year. Because, Sidney Crosby's still around, and I think you can really, he has a great opportunity to retool on the fly. I think that is the plan right now for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Not a full-on rebuild. It doesn't make sense with Crosby and some of these other guys still around with the contracts that they have. I think they have an opportunity to rebuild on the fly or retool on the fly, go for it again next year. Maybe not win a Stanley Cup, but he can start to build the foundation of what's going to take over when those contracts of guys like Sidney Crosby do end up expiring. So I feel like that's probably the plan at this point. And if it was his way, I feel like he would have done a full rebuild, but the disaster that he walked into, I don't think is allowing him to.
And the biggest thing is looking at the Penguins going into next season. Right now, they have just shy of 26 million of projected cap space, and that's with the lineup of what you see on the screen. They do have a lot of the core. See, the right side is very weak. The defense on the left side does need upgrades. I mean, right now, Ryan Graves almost looks unplayable some nights. Tristan Jarry's contract doesn't look great, but this is a team that would add, if a guy like Mitch Marner joined, right into the top six. We've seen him play with Sidney Crosby, and listen, it was only a few games. I'm not going to say they have incredible chemistry at the moment, but they do have 26 million. So if you do sign Mitch Marner to the 13 million or more, whatever he's asking for, you're left with about 13 mil to fill out the rest of the group. This is with the projected cap raising as well. So it is the exact numbers. But the biggest thing is, Penguins fans, what's your thoughts on the possibility of signing Mitch Marner? I mean, looking at Colby Armstrong, he does want to link the two, especially with Dubas being the general manager and at the helm of Pittsburgh. What are you guys' thoughts on this? Would you like to sign Mitch Marner? Or if it's not Mitch Marner, what free agent would you like to see the Penguins sign? But with that, that'd be it for this episode. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to go down and hit the like, subscribe, share this with your friends. We'll be back with another episode, and you're not going to want to miss out. But I've been your host, Mark, and my co-host, Darius, and take care.